If you've ever tried to meditate, you know that your inner world can feel, well, a little chaotic sometimes. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful shift in perspective that can turn those struggles into your biggest source of insight. And this is true whether you're just starting out or you've been at this for years. So let's just be real for a second. It is not always calm and blissful, right? Sometimes it's messy, it's frustrating, or honestly, it's just kind of boring. If you've ever felt that way, you are in exactly the right place because we're going to explore how those very moments, the tough ones, can actually become the most valuable parts of your practice. And this is the core idea that can totally transform everything. This quote really flips the script. It reframes every challenge not as a failure, but as this incredible opportunity. The point here isn't to avoid the difficult sessions. No, it's to learn how to lean into them. So let's start by looking directly at some of those difficult states we all run into and, explore what the advice is for when they pop up. Oh man, this one is such a common roadblock. You sit down and your brain just goes, nope, not today. Or maybe you can't even get yourself to the cushion in the first place. And the temptation is always to just force it, right? To muscle through. But the path forward here is actually completely counterintuitive. What's so interesting here is the focus on relaxation. So instead of fighting that feeling of resistance, step one is simple. Just don't panic. Step two is to actively relax into it. And then step three, and this is the real key, is to learn to observe the feeling of not wanting to meditate as if it were the object of meditation itself. You literally turn the obstacle into the path. And that just brilliantly illustrates a deeper point, doesn't it? The practice isn't just about, watching your breath or bodily sensations. It's about being aware of your entire approach, your attitude, your expectations, your frustrations. That little self-check, well, that is mindfulness in action. Okay, so let's move on. We've talked about what to do with resistance. Now, let's get into the mechanics of how we observe our inner world to get to that deep understanding. Our source material really zooms in on a specific type of meditation called Vipassana, or insight meditation. And really, the name tells you everything you need to know. The goal isn't to just bliss out or to stop thinking. The goal is to develop clarity and insight by creating just a little bit of space between you, the observer, and whatever it is you're observing. This slide breaks it down perfectly. So on one side, you've got Vipassana, which is all about stepping back, watching from a little distance. The goal there is understanding. Then on the other side, you have Samatha, or concentration meditation. That's where you dive in, you get absorbed. Both are super valuable, but for gaining insight into our struggles, that stepping back quality of Vipassana is the tool we really need. And your practice naturally evolves. When you start, it's pretty much all about just being mindful. Simply noticing you've gotten distracted and then gently coming back to the present again and again and again. But as that skill gets stronger, you can move on to step two. You can start to actively observe and investigate what you find there with a real sense of curiosity. But, and this is a big but, there's a major trap here, and that is our own assumptions. We're warned that these assumptions are based on wrong views, and they basically act like a filter that stops us from seeing things the way they actually are. So we might assume anxiety is bad, or that peace is good, but these are just labels, and they get in the way of seeing what's really there. This is exactly why the idea of mind objects is so incredibly powerful. See, thinking isn't you, it's just a mind object. Even a state like peace or joy isn't you. It's just a temporary condition happening in the mind. And the same goes for resistance. Once you start to see them as these impersonal objects that just arise and pass away, you stop getting so attached to them or trying so hard to push them away. So all of this leads to a really fundamental shift in how we look at the entire experience of meditation. It really is all about changing our perspective on what's happening from one moment to the next. Yeah, we're coming back to this core idea because it is just that important. Let's really let that sink in for a second. Your most frustrating, your most distracted, your most difficult sessions, they are not failures. They are your greatest teachers. They're packed with data about how your mind works, if you're just willing to look. So the goal isn't to get rid of all the bad experiences and only have good ones. The real goal is to learn how to accept all of our experiences with a sense of balance. Good experiences? Awesome, accept them. But the bad experiences, we accept them and we treat them like these really valuable learning opportunities. This is what it means to get mature in your practice. You stop just reacting to difficulty. You know that, oh, I'm anxious again feeling, and you start investigating its nature. What were the conditions that led to this feeling? Because when you understand the conditions, you can start to work on the actual root cause, not just the symptom. So finally, let's talk about the difference between knowing all this stuff in your head and truly understanding it from your own direct experience. Because let's face it, there's a huge difference between reading the map and actually walking the path. Reading books and watching explainers like this one, it's helpful. It gives you a framework. But the source material is very clear. Hold that knowledge lightly. Don't let the theory replace your own investigation. The biggest mistake you can make is to have an experience and then immediately slap a label on it based on something you read. Because true wisdom, or what the source calls actual understanding, is born from experience. And when it finally dawns on you, you will see for yourself that there is a vast, undeniable difference between what you thought you knew from a book and what you now know deep down in your bones. It's a total game changer. And so we'll end with this provocative thought. Most of us start meditating because we're looking for peace. But what if the peace you're chasing is just another temporary state? Just another mind object to be observed, really no different from restlessness or joy. What happens to your practice when you stop chasing any particular state, and instead you just open up to observing whatever is actually here, right now? Well, that's a question only you can answer.